So now that the transfer portal is officially closed, I wanted to take a look at some of the top players that are still available in the portal and then rank them and predict where I think they could end up next season. So let's jump into it. And we got to start with one of my top players out of the entire transfer portal, and that's Milan Momcilovic from Iowa State, and he probably is the best shooter in all of college basketball, and it's honestly not even close. Momcilovic just put up one of the most ridiculous shooting seasons we've ever seen in college, and he averaged nearly 17 points per game and was almost 49% from the three-point line on elite volume. And at 6'8", that kind of shooting gravity completely warps defenses, and right now he's testing the NBA waters, and it looks like he's all in on that. But if he does come back to college, he instantly becomes the most valuable offensive piece that's going to be available in the portal. Kentucky has been a team that has been mentioned to be linked to him, and they desperately need shooting, while Florida was mentioned earlier on, but likely has backed off now that Thomas Houck has announced he is returning to school. But if Momcilovic does end up returning to college basketball, I expect there to be a big bidding war among some of the top high major programs for him. And at my number 2, it's Juke Harris from Wake Forest, and Harris might be the biggest breakout player that we have in the entire portal this cycle. He went from a bench role as a freshman with Wake Forest to over 21 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and nearly 2 assists as a sophomore there for the Demon Deacons. And at 6'7", he brings elite positional size there on the wing with real shot creation ability, and the three-point percentage for him sits around 33%, but the volume and confidence from beyond the arc definitely stand out, and I think he's going to be better than that next season. And Harris is a true scoring wing, and Michigan has already hosted him on a visit, but North Carolina and Tennessee are also firmly in the mix, and if he lands in the right system, Harris could be one of the best wings in college basketball next season. And if I had to make my prediction, I think he ends up with Dusty May there at Michigan. But coming in at number 3, I have one of the most recent portal additions, and that's Tounde Yessoufou from Baylor, and this right here is where things get really interesting, because as I mentioned, Yessoufou was a late portal entry, and it completely changed the landscape of the portal. Yessoufou averaged nearly 18 points per game at Baylor, and he's a former 5-star and is still developing because he's coming off of his freshman season. His motor runs nonstop, and the scoring ability is already high level, but the next step is him tightening his handle and his decision making, and then being able to consistently hit the three-point shot. He's currently projected as a first-round NBA draft pick, but if he returns to college, and I think he will, the demand will be massive among high major programs. UCLA and Kentucky are the 2 names to watch right now at the top of the list, but I also think Texas Tech and Kansas are teams that are going to be involved with him. But wherever he lands, he instantly becomes the centerpiece of that team and could have a breakout sophomore year. At number 4, I got Allen Graves from Santa Clara, and Allen Graves is the ultimate analytics darling, and once you look deeper, it makes total sense why that is. At 6'9", Graves put up elite defensive metrics there with the Broncos, as he had a 4.8% block rate and a 4.8% steal rate, which is extremely rare, especially with a guy from his size. Add in a 2.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio, and you're talking about a true two-way playmaker. He averaged nearly 12 points and 6.5 rebounds in a breakout season as a freshman there with Santa Clara. And LSU is a team that has been reported to be pushing hard with a potential hometown pull because he is from the state of Louisiana. But Duke is another program to watch closely, and if the Blue Devils were able to land Graves, that completely changes the ceiling of that team. But he is also testing the NBA draft, but I think he will return to college basketball, and if he does, he may have the highest upside of anyone available. Next, at number 5, I have what might be the best big man available in the portal, and that's Massamba Diop from Arizona State. And Diop is definitely one of the most valuable players still available, especially at his position, because he's 7'1", but what makes him different is how fluid he moves at that size. He averaged 13.5 points, 6 rebounds, and over 2 blocks per game as a freshman at Arizona State, in one of the best conferences in the Big 12. He's an elite rim protector, but also flashes ball handling and touch flash that you just don't normally see with a guy at his size. And Gonzaga has already hosted him on a visit, and St. John's is expected to bring him in soon. And right now it seems to be down between those two teams, but I would say keep an eye on Kansas and Arkansas as potential late contenders for Diop, because both of those teams desperately need big men for next season, and bigs with this type of profile don't stay available long in the portal. But I got another big man at number 6, and it's Moustapha Thiam from Cincinnati, and Thiam might be the best pure defensive anchor left in the portal. At 7'2" and 250 pounds, Thiam brings elite size, physicality, and rim protection. He averaged 13 points, 7 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game this past season with the Bearcats, but what stands out to me most is how he finished the season, because he averaged nearly 18 points and 10 boards over the final stretch, and that shows some serious development from the start to the end of the year. Offensively, he still has room to grow, but the tools are obvious, and Michigan has already hosted him and is pushing hard for him, while St. John's is also involved. And with his trajectory, Thiam could explode into one of the top bigs in the country next season, and I really think where he ends up depends on whether or not Michigan gets a Day Mara back and if St. John's lands Diop or not. But at number 7, I got one of the better shooters in the portal, and that's Paul McNeil Jr., the transfer from NC State, and the numbers back that up. He shot over 42% from 3 this past season on more than 7 attempts per game, which is elite production, but he's more than just a catch and shoot type of guy, because he moves well off the ball, he has the ability to get to the free throw line, and can take over games, like his 47-point explosion earlier in the year with the Wolfpack. And LSU is the logical landing spot with the Will Wade connection there, but NC State is still trying to keep him in Raleigh under new head coach Justin Gainey, and wherever he ends up though, he instantly upgrades the spacing and the shooting that team has. Next at number 8, it's Arizona transfer Dwayne Aristode, and Aristode to me has one of the highest upsides out of any player still available in the portal. At 6'8", he has a smooth shooting stroke and a natural feel for the game, and he just checks a lot of boxes that teams look for. He didn't get consistent opportunities on what was a loaded Arizona roster last season, but scouts have been high on him for a while now, and he showed a lot of flashes of potential when he did get minutes there for the Wildcats. And Auburn has been an aggressive team early on in his recruitment and feels like a strong fit for him next season, and the talent is absolutely undeniable for Aristode, but the question really is going to be his opportunity and role, and I believe that's one thing he is looking for in the next team that he goes to. But if he lands somewhere that gives him real minutes, like I think Auburn will, Aristode has the tools to make a massive leap next season as a sophomore. And at number 9, it's Vyctorius Miller from Oklahoma State. And Vyctorius Miller quietly put together a solid bounce-back season this past year with the Cowboys. After a slow start to his college career at LSU, he averaged nearly 11 points per game while shooting 37.5% from 3 in the Big 12 Conference. And the shooting is definitely what makes him valuable, because he's not necessarily a primary creator, although he did show that at times. But he is a scoring wing who can space the floor and fits almost anywhere. Kansas has been a team that he's heavily linked to, and he recently went on a visit there with the Jayhawks, and they could really use that shooting presence after a slow portal start. And this feels like a clean fit with Bill Self and Kansas, because he is experienced, proven in the Big 12 Conference, and ready to contribute right away. And if the Jayhawks are able to get this pickup, I think that would be huge for them. And rounding out the top 10, I got Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn from UNLV, and Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn is one of the most efficient scorers still available in the portal, and I'm honestly surprised nobody's picked him up yet, because he proved that this past season. He led the conference in scoring while shooting 41% from 3 and an incredible 57% from inside the arc as a guard, and that's elite efficiency across all levels. And although he might be slightly undersized, which can create challenges when building around him, there's no denying the production that he brings, as he's a pure bucket getter, and in the right system where he doesn't have to carry everything like he did did this past season with the Rebels, Gibbs-Lawhorn could be a major offensive weapon and one of the most impactful guards in the country. And one team that has stood out the most to me is Texas Tech, and I think him under Grant McCasland could be a really good fit because McCasland has done extremely well with undersized guards before. Then at number 11, we got Joson Sanon from St. John's, and Sanon to me is one of the more intriguing wild cards that's available in the portal right now because the talent from him is clear, as he's a 6'5" guard who has shown the ability that he can score at all three levels and has a career 35% mark from beyond the arc. But the concerns definitely come from his shot selection and overall impact on winning, and he's now looking for his third school in 3 years, so fit is everything here for Sanon. But programs like Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, and other high majors have shown a lot of interest into him, which speaks to his upside. But if he finds the right system and role, Sanon could definitely outperform expectations next season as a junior. St. Mary's transfer Mikey Lewis comes in at number 12, and he's the definition of a true microwave scorer, and he's just the type of player who can get hot and completely take over the game, and he showed that multiple times at St. Mary's, knocking down deep pull-up threes and scoring at all three levels. Now, he's not a traditional point guard, but is truly a scoring guard because he brings real offensive punch, and that's where most of his value comes from. Vanderbilt has already hosted him on a visit, while Oregon, Villanova, and even Arizona State, where his former head coach Randy Bennett now is, are all involved. And Lewis can be streaky, but when he finds a rhythm, he can definitely elevate an entire offense, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him once again playing under Randy Bennett there at Arizona State next season. At number 13, it's Darius Adams from Maryland, and Adams would be a long-term upside play out of the portal, but he has real potential. At 6'5", he's a combo guard who averaged nearly 11 points per game as a freshman under Buzz Williams there at Maryland, and he was a highly touted recruit coming in and was even previously committed to UConn, so you can definitely see that some of the top programs have been interested in him before, but he's still developing as a playmaker and decision maker, and although his freshman season wasn't the best, the scoring flashes are definitely promising, and with the right coaching staff and opportunity, Adams could definitely take a major leap in year 2, and this is the type of player programs bet on for future star potential rather than immediate dominance, and I still think he's going to be at the high major level, but it might not just be at one of these blue bloods that we've been talking about for the others. At 14, I got Jaylin Stewart, the UConn transfer, and Stewart to me brings something that doesn't always show up in the stat sheet, and that's winning experience. He was a key contributor on a national championship team there with UConn and played a role in another deep tournament run to the national title game this past season with the Huskies. And while his numbers were definitely modest, as he averaged around 4 points and 2.5 rebounds per game, his impact goes way beyond that. He defends, moves the ball, and understands team basketball at a high level, and it looked like he actually wanted to stay at UConn, but they just couldn't promise more minutes than what he previously got, especially with bringing Nicholas Haminia in from Duke. But Washington has been mentioned as a potential landing spot for Stewart, and Boston College could also be in play with the coaching connection there. But Stewart is the type of player winning programs always value, and I think he's going to be one of the more improved players in all of college basketball next season. And then rounding out my top 15, it's Julius Halaifonua from Georgetown, and Halaifonua is one of the more skilled bigs still available in the transfer portal. At 7 feet tall, he averaged 9.5 points and 4.5 rebounds while showing impressive touch around the basket. And what stands out is his offensive versatility the most, as he's not just a lob threat. He has shown the ability to pass, score with both hands, and even has the potential to stretch the floor. And originally, it was mentioned that he was going back to Georgetown, but then he decided to enter the portal, and although his defense is still developing, the offensive upside is definitely there, and BYU has been a team that has shown really strong interest into Halaifonua, and he would fit well in their system in my opinion, especially playing alongside a guard like Rob Wright in the pick and roll. But that wraps it up for this one. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of my rankings of the players still available in the transfer portal. Also, if you've been enjoying all of the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.